Hello guys, welcome to Level Change channel. I had a problem starting this live stream. I was actually broadcasting for nobody for 8 minutes. Then I realized that I skipped the start button. Okay, so here we go. This live stream is especially designed for the Pmdg forum. Why? Because as a 777 pilot, I released 777 guide a few days ago, and I got really nice feedbacks from the forum itself. Okay, and then I realized that it was time for me to update my 737 simulator guide, try to use the same format as I used for the 777, and here I am today to explain you about the simulator guide and make a flight with you using the guide to show you that experienced pilots can take advantage of this guide as well as beginners. So I will explain more details as we are going through it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to show you is the guide itself. So sometimes you are going to see the screen like this with the 737 guide on the right side and the simulator on the left side. Okay, so first thing that I want to share with you is that I duplicate the cover, and on the second page you do not have the background. So if you want to print out this guide, you start from page number 2 and go ahead, you will still see the page numbers correctly. Okay, you are going to still see the page numbers correctly, even on the index page and everything. Okay, so if you want to print out, please go ahead, print out from page number 2. Then you have the index itself. So far we have 55 pages of this guide. It may look a lot, but there are more things to come on this guide, and some things that I'm going to change in the future as I update the 777 guide and the 737 guide and so on. And of course, a couple of things that we learn on how to deal with Microsoft Flight Simulator, with new technologies and so on. Okay, so after the index you will have the introduction. The introduction will explain you 3 major things about this guide and how I designed this guide and why. But the most important is that the guide was designed to allow you to fly the 737 and the 777 guide as well alone, as most of us are alone in the front of the cockpit for your home simulator. Okay, so that's why it's designed and it's been made like this. Okay, so this is the main thing about this guide. I know that some pilots, they use FS2Crew as a co-pilot, which is really nice, and you can even see that today I'm not going to use, but I do have the FS2Crew animated first officer here. I'm not going to use him, but yeah, FS2Crew is here. So this guide was designed for you to fly alone. Even if you are using your controls that you can share the cockpit, you can still use this guide, but have in mind that this guide was not designed for a dual pilot operation like in real life. I do have a manual about the dual pilot operation, like a standard manual for the 737 and for the 777 that you can find on my YouTube channel as well. Okay, so that's the first part about the introduction. Second part is how to use this guide. Most important is that you are going to have some tables. I'm going to share the tables. For example, this is the table for the electrical power-up supplementary procedure. Okay, so on these tables you are going to see some items that are bold and some items that are in normal font. Okay, so When the items are bold, it means you have to do those items, okay? So if you are a beginner, just go and perform the bold items. Don't read all the guide, don't read all the lines. Go to the bold items. It's the bare minimum that you have to do to fly your 737. Okay, if you are more experienced, then you go to the other items as well that will give you the full 737 flight one more time, designed to be flown alone. Okay, I also leave to you some specific format for the checklist and information about the software that we are going to use. In this case is the Pmdg, but you can use in any 737. Have in mind that if you are using failures on Pmdg or a different software, you may need to check for the non-mandatory items, as they may be different, or they may be selected different based on the configuration that you're going to start your flight. Okay, then this is me. I'm going to update this photo. I'm going to take here an old photo of my times on the 737, so expect a different photo, expect me younger on the newest version of this guide. You can already download this one through the video description link, but I'm going to update with a photo on the 737 itself. Okay, and here you can also understand who I am and how I'm able to do this kind of guide. Okay, then we are going to do together this flight. So we are going to start with the initialization. Okay, so for the initialization, we are going to go to the Pmdg setup, okay, in the FMC menu. Okay, so I go to the menu, I go to Pmdg setup, state load, and I'm going to choose the state that was designed by Pmdg, which is the cold dark. Okay, so in this case, cold dark, and execute. Okay, we have the first message here from Arman Share Captain. Will you put this up on the Pmdg forum? Yes, it's already there. That is on the 737 general discussion. You can already see a new topic about new 737 guide. Actually, it's an update, but for the forum is a new one. You will find the guide there, the link for the guide, and the link for this live stream is there. Okay, so after you executed the cold and dark, you are going to see the plane like this. One thing that is written here, and of course I use some notes to help us as well. Those notes, they are related to the software. Okay, and I say note 1, which is going to be very small on your screen, but if you download the guide, you are going to see it better. It says that after loading the cold and dark state, hold the FMC menu button for a couple of seconds until the screen comes to life. So you can access Pmdg setup and FX actions submenus. Okay, and a couple of other things related to the service on the 737. Okay, so we hold menu, and then we can go to the next step. Okay, so we want to make sure that the wheel shocks are set. Okay, most probably they are. If we go outside, you are going to see that the shocks are set on the Pmdg cold and dark state. Okay, so the second step, because it's already done by Pmdg, it is not bold. Okay, it is not bold. Okay, so the second step you don't really have to do, as the first one you had to do it. So we did the Pmdg setup, state load, cold and dark, and we start from the cold and dark. The next steps here you don't have to do, or they are preset by Pmdg. Okay, so in this case the wheel shocks were set. The next step is about stairs, jetways. So you do if you want to play with that, okay? I'm going to do the complete setup today, but one more time, the only thing that you have to do for the initialization is executing the cold and dark menu, okay? So I'm going to do the next steps here as I go to FS actions, and then I can check on ground services that the wheel chocks are set. The next one, I'm going to select a jetway. So PAX entry, no, I don't really need. I want jetway, okay? So I want jetway because today I'm on a jetway, okay, here in Boston. So I just selected jetway, and then the next step is if stairs were selected. That's not the case, I don't do it. I do the next step if jetway is selected. I go to FS menu, FS actions, also ground services, but on the page 1 of 4, and I request the jetway to operate the jetway, okay? So here it comes, the request, jetway is coming, okay? I'm going to do all this flight only using Pmdg software, only using the Pmdg setup, okay? I'm not going to use any other add-ons. Like as you can see inside this airplane, I have my FO for the FS2 crew. I'm not going to call him, and also I do have GSX, but I'm not going to call GSX today, okay? By chance this jetway is by GSX, but it works with the standard Microsoft Flight Simulator jetways anyway, okay? And one more thing, if I selected the jetway, it does not open the door to me. So now that we have the jetway connected, we go to the door and we can open that door so somebody can come inside this airplane. I don't know how our first officer is already there, but now is the time that we just open the door and we can start our flight, okay? This is a good time to get the maintenance van. So usually there's no pilot at this stage, so you can go to ground service, ground service, page 2, and maintenance van you can request, okay? Also on the page number 4, you can request for the baggage loader and carts for the aft and the forward cargo doors, okay? So the maintenance van from Pmdg is coming there, and you are going to see eventually also the carts coming, okay? Eventually for the baggage they will come, okay? We are going to see them in a while, okay? So one is arriving, and then the next ones are going to arrive when there is time for it, okay? But it's already requested, okay? So the next step in our guide is to do the electrical power up, okay? Electrical power up is usually done by maintenance personnel, okay? That's why we got the maintenance van, and now you can see the loaders coming in, okay? So at this time, usually on a real flight, there are no pilots on board, just maintenance, okay? And then you have to do basically today, turn on the battery, and then you need GPU or APU. Today I'm going to follow the guide because most of the companies around the world, they don't use the GPU on the 737 unless it's an overnight or something like this. So for normal operations, usually they go on the APU, okay? So I'm going to start the APU, which is the step for establish electrical power. If you are going to follow all the items, not only the mandatory ones, you are going to check for the standby power switch, which is this one. The standby power switch needs to be guard closed as well. Then the alternate flap master switch is this red one here, guard closed, and the alternate and the wiper selectors. Wiper are those two, they need to be in park, and the electric hydraulic pumps, they need to be off, okay? And landing gear, it needs to be down, and that's it. Then you choose between your GPU, ground power unit or your APU, auxiliary power unit. Okay, when the GPU is running, okay, you can take it on the bus. We are just waiting the GPU to be running. Now we have, and then we take the APU gen, okay, APU gen switches both to on, and now we have electrical power to this airplane. Okay, of course, if you're following all the procedures before starting the APU, you do the engine and APU fire detection system test, and after you get the APU, you also do the test one more time, because at this stage you want to make sure after the APU is on the bus that this light wheel well is going to illuminate. Okay, so if you want to do all the tests, is up to you. Then I'm going to give you on the next page an advanced tip, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this advanced tip. So usually the procedures so far are performed by the maintenance team. When the pilots arrive at the airplane, it is electrically powered and climate controlled using an external air conditioning or the packs as needed. In real life, the remaining fuel is also generally less than preset in Pmdg's cold and dark state. There are no passengers on board as well, so the current weight of the aircraft is above what it should be. Also, there is an error by Pmdg which left the transponder mode selector incorrectly in transponder mode and not in standby mode. The transponder code selected by Pmdg is 1234, and while it's not a big deal, most operators reset the code to 2000 after the flight. It's even mandatory procedure at certain airports around the world. You may want to correct all these details, and the procedure below describes how to do so. For a better immersion, you can complete the steps below, save the current state, and configure Pmdg to always start like this. In this case, you can start your flight from the preliminary pre-flight in the next page, just like a real pilot. Okay, so this is important. Everything that I'm going here so far, including the advanced tip, is something that usually the maintenance do before the flight for the pilot. So if you fill out all these steps, if you complete all these steps, you can even select your Pmdg, or after selecting your Pmdg, instead of going to the cold and dark state and making these small adjustments here, you can start from the new state that you just created. Okay, and then you start all your flights from the page number 9, which is the preliminary pre-flight procedure, which is the first normal procedure for the crew. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the advanced tip together. Okay, so one thing that we are going to do, we are going on the overhead panel and we are going to take the light to steady. Okay, position light switch to steady. The next step, we go all the way down and we take this transponder to standby, and usually the code is 2000. Is up to you if you want to reset it to 2000 or not. Okay, usually at most of the bases we don't have an air conditioning unit, so I'm not going to use air conditioning unit at this stage, but as we do have APU, I'm going to take the packs on and the APU bleed air switch to on. Sorry, the packs, they go to auto, which is the on, normal position auto, and the APU bleed air switch goes to on. There will be no external AC today, so you can go back to your FMC menu, FS actions, payload, and set empty. Note, at this stage we have 160 people on board. We do not want that 160 people on board. Okay, we want to set this as empty, so nobody is inside this airplane. There's no cargo, there's no nothing. Okay, that's how the airplane should be. Nobody is inside the airplane. Okay, another thing, you can go to your fuel, and 25,000 kilograms of fuel, it is a lot. Okay, so usually the planes do not land with this, as I do have my settings here. Well, this is in pounds because of the American Airlines livery, but that's something that I'm going to change because I'm very used to kilograms. Okay, so I have to go on this place. Yeah, I'm going to use kilograms. Okay, so I'm going to use kilograms instead of pounds. Sorry, the fuel was not 25,000 kilograms, was 11,000 kilograms, which is still a lot. Okay, and I'm going to use kilos just because I more use it to kilos. And let me check. Yeah, we do have the tablet here, so it's something that I want to do and use the tablet as well. Okay, so basically we want to set something like 2,500 kilograms of fuel, or if you are using pounds, 5,500 pounds of fuel. Okay, this is a good amount of fuel. This is something that most of the companies will land the 737 with. Okay, then you can go to FMC menu, PMDG setup, state safe, panel state safe, enter a name. Today I'm going to use the following name. Okay, I'm going to use jet because I have jetway. Okay, and I have APU. So jet and APU, that's my name for this configuration that we have so far. I'm going to add here and I'm going to execute. So if something happens or I want to start another flight any day, I can take my airplane anywhere and just go to the PMDG setup, startup state, select the state safe that I want, and this is going to be the one. Otherwise, I can always load this state from my side. Okay, so it's taking successfully saved to jet APU. Okay, so now you have two options. You can select the startup state here, any one of these, including the one that we just created, jet APU. Okay, or if you don't want a startup state all the time, your airplane to start like this, you can always go to panel state load and select the one that you want. I'm not going to load because it's the one that I just selected. Okay, so this is the startup state. Something that if you are flying and you want to take all the cars and the trucks available from PMDG, this is a good time for you to go to the FMC menu, FS actions. Okay, and then this is the time that the crew is coming on board, so there is no way to set the crew on PMDG. Okay, but as the crew is already on board, you can go to ground services on the page number 2 and release the maintenance van. Okay, so the maintenance is going away. There's no maintenance on board anymore. Now pilots are here, and including the cabin crew, and you can go to the page number 3. Okay, and you can get here the forward and the aft galley as you wish. Okay, if you also want, you can take the fuel truck on the previous page, page number 2. Okay, so you get the fuel truck. As we have Canal Me Gusta RN here, thank you so much for being here one more time. This is the first member that show up in this live stream. Thank you for your support always. So here we are. Now, if we go outside, we are going to see that the fuel truck is here, and eventually we are going to see the catering as well. Okay, the catering is actually waiting for the baggage to finish, so we can go, and we cannot cancel this as we started, but if you want to, you can release the forward one, and they will just keep loading the back, and then later on they can finish the back, and after finishing the back you can get your galley as well. Or sometimes you get the galley first and then you get the loaders and so on. It's up to you to change those things, and I'm going to update this guide as I go through and I see that a couple of things are different. Okay, so after you finish the advanced tip, okay, it's time for you to work as a pilot and start the preliminary pre-flight procedure. Okay, very important that if you are doing preliminary pre-flight procedure, you check on the setup here for Pmdg that you do not have failures unless you want the failures. Okay, so make sure you have or you do not have failures, is up to you. So check this as the technical log, as a reminder for you to check the technical log. Okay, a couple of things that you don't really need to do, like the test for the lights and so on, is up to you. But what is important is that you check the engine oil quantity. Okay, so you come here and you see 17 and 18. You need a minimum of 17% or 14 units. Okay, is up to you if this is going to be in percent or units. Okay, 17%, 14 units. I'm still updating the manual as I go. Okay, so 17% or 14 units. We have 70%, 70% or 14 units. In this case we have 17 and 18 units. It's more than enough. Then you go here, you check on the system that your hydraulic quantity doesn't show RF. Okay, the next step will be the crew oxygen pressure indicator, which is all the way on the top. Usually on the flight sim you don't have a problem with this, and then you get your inertials to nav. After this you go a little bit down and you get your emergency exit lights to arm. This is very important because you cannot board passengers before having the emergency exit lights armed. Okay, then you get the ATIS or weather and operational information. Usually we can do this from the tablet here, but to do it from the tablet you need a SimBrief flight plan. I didn't do the SimBrief flight plan before, so I'm going to do it really quick here. So we are going to be American Airlines 1986 departing from Boston to JFK Kilo Juliet Foxtrot Kilo. I'm going to use this airplane and our S714, yeah, and I'm just going to execute like this. Really easy flight. I'm going to generate the flight. I just generated the flight on the SimBrief. Okay, so now I can go back and select what I was doing. Okay, so we can go to the EFB in electronic flight bag here, and then we can request data from SimBrief, which is basically load the route. We can also go to the charts and get the charts that we are going to need. So, and actually even before that, on the first page we can get the weather for Boston. Okay, so we have good weather, 110 at 10, 17 degrees, and the altimeter is 2976. So you know how is your departure, so we can go to the charts and we can select the SID. So basically according to our flight plan will be SOC 7, but I'm going to depart runway 04, is easier. Logan for departure is the one that we need, and then later on I'm going to select on arrival in part 3, if I'm not wrong. Yes, part 3. Let I make sure. Yep, part 3 is our departure that we need, and I'm going to land most probably on the ILS for right. ILS for right. If I'm not wrong, let's check the weather in New York. 190 at 19, so it's not for right, it's going to be 22 left. Okay, so still part 3, but the approach will be ILS 22 left. Okay, so now I have the chart, I have the route, and I can also do my performance calculations. Okay, so I'm going to select 4 left for departure. I'm going to import from the aircraft first that I get the CG, and then from the OFP. Okay, the CG doesn't really matter for you now, and I'm going to calculate like this. It's more than enough. I can even reduce rating to 2, takeoff 2, and select 61 degrees of temperature. Landing dispatch, if I also want to left in this case, we import the weather, and for dispatch we always say flaps 40, backs off, anti-ice off for this case, and we have maximum landing weight, so takeoff calculations, they were complete. Armchair captain, can this guide be inserted on the tablet of the 737 for VR users? No, I'm sorry, cannot. This is something that Pmdg told us that they cannot have on this tablet a PDF reader because of copyrights and all those stuff, and they are not willing, of course, to pay a lot of money to have a PDF reader here. Okay, so if something comes up in the future where you can take these PDFs, then yeah, of course you will be able to do it, but as of now this is not an option. I'm sorry about that. Okay, but it's not something that I can change. Okay, so if you continue on your simulator guide, you will see that a couple of steps you just perform on the first flight of the day. Okay, so these steps that you just perform on the first flight of the day, if you don't want to do it at all, they are all set. Okay, but basically we check the entire aft overhead panel, okay, including the Mach airspeed windows. Oh, I just realized that I'm not giving you the simulator audio. Okay, I'm not giving you the simulator audio, which let me just make sure that we have the audio now. Okay, so now most probably you are going to start listening to my audio, and now you can hear the airplane. Okay, so in this case you can do the Mach airspeed warning test, you can do the stall warning test, check all the aft overhead panel, also check circuit breakers. Okay, you can also check circuit breakers, manual gear extension door, which is down here, and also, as this is the first flight of the day, if you as a pilot didn't do the fire warning test, this is the time that you are going to do the overheat and fire warning test. Okay, so you are going to do it this time, and also the cargo fire test. Okay, weather radar as well, but it's not in use. By the way, you can check if this in the future, if we have a weather radar or something that you can test on the first flight of the day. Okay, the next step is for you to do the external inspection, and if you are going to use If you're going to check the brake wear indication, you set the parking brake. That's not the case for us. One thing that I tell you as well on this guide is that this is a time for you to go outside and make sure that you are doing everything that you want, okay? I'm going to invert catering first and then the baggage, because that's usually what happens, or you get catering and baggages together on most of the 737s, but here is not a possibility on the PMDG, okay? So make sure that you, during your exterior inspection, you take everything that you don't want anymore. Like, for example, I don't want the forward galley anymore, it's already complete, and I can release the aft loaders, and I can get the forward one as well, as just a matter of complying with some sort of cargo loading here, okay? It's up to you. Take this time as exterior inspection to do this stuff, okay? And if you are in a remote area, you can take your passenger bus as well, okay? That's not the case for us. Then you go for the CDU initial data, and on the CDU initial data, a couple of things you have to do. I'm going to use only this side, because the most important thing is that you go to your menu, then FS actions, and you have a couple of options to set your payload and fuel, okay? What I usually do, I get from SimBrief how many passengers I have, and I can estimate zero fuel weight and all these sort of things, okay? So to do this, I have to know the numbers. I can set here. I'm not going to do today, okay, because I'm going to use the loading for the FMC, for the passengers, from the SimBrief data. But I can take my fuel just for you to show a progressive refueling, okay? So we need 5.1 tons of fuel. So we can come here, FS actions, ground services, on the page number 2, and I am telling them I need 5,200 kilograms of fuel. As I have the fuel truck, I can start refueling, and you are going to see a progressive refueling here, okay? So you can do a progressive refueling for the passengers, you can do a progressive boarding of the passengers, a progressive boarding also, not only the passengers here, but also the amount of cargo. But this doesn't change anything. You don't see any visual change. That's why I just do for the fuel. But it's up to you, okay? So now we go back and we continue our FMC. So on the first page, you check model rating active database. Then you go to the next page to take the GPS as inertial position, okay? And you also take it your first place of departure, which is Boston, as a reference airport. Then on the route, you enter your departure, KJF, okay, as destination, okay, flight number if you want, and then you enter the route. I'm going to request the route from SimBrief to make it simple. So SimBrief route, okay, I'm going to set the payload from here, and I'm going to select the route as the fuel is being selected, okay? So that's it. I have the route really soon, okay? So I can load the route. Route uplink is loading, and I'm going to see that I already have a flight number here if I did from SimBrief, okay? So it's updating. So we can check the next page. We have all the route there, SOX, Buzzard, and Say, okay? So we can cancel and activate and execute. Even pressing on activate and execute is on this page, okay? So then you go departure and arrival. For the departure, we are going to select the departure runway, in this case for left, and we are going to depart on Logan for departure. You can execute that as well. Then you go to route, performance, and then you enter your cost index, reserve, zero fuel weight, and cruising altitude. Okay, I'm going to request that from Pmdg, sorry, from SimBrief, as I have this option. And I'm going to load and just make sure we have the correct information, because this one also includes our transition altitude. So I'm going to load, I'm going to execute, and I want to make sure on my flight plan that I'm going on level 220. That's something that you always have to check, because it doesn't come from the SimBrief. It comes from internally from Pmdg, so I'm changing this to 220. All the rest is correct. Okay. After that, if you want, you can go to the descent forecast page to take the winds if you want to, and also transition level, anti-ice, ISA deviation, and everything. If you have a SimBrief integration, it's much easier. You just request and you will get all the information there. Okay, in a minute it will come. So I'm loading this one, and you are going to see that the wind and ISA deviation comes here. You can execute. Also on the legs page, if you want, on route data, you can request the winds for this flight. Okay. Very important that you select on the progress page and you check your distance, 201 miles, just to make sure you have the correct one. So 201, and if you come here, the ground distance is supposed to be 233. The small difference here is because of our arrival that I didn't set yet. If you want, you can also set the arrival. Okay, so I come here to legs and I'm going to load the winds for this flight. It says it's loading, and then after loading I can execute. If I really want before departure, and usually I do it, I select my expected approach there, ILS 2 to left with Parch 3. Sierra Echo Yankee is the transition. I can execute. Okay, it also says that the forecast is ready. I can go there and load the forecast one more time, and then I go to the progress and I see now 212 miles. This is because the only difference that we have here is because I was departing on runway 9 and landing on runway 13, and today I'm departing runway 04 and landing runway 22. Okay, so that it's a small change on the distance, but it basically matches the ground distance. Very important for you to do this. Okay, so once it's finished with the CDU, you can start the pre-flight procedure. And here the pre-flight procedure is something that in real life the pilots, they are going to work separated, and I did it in one column one time for you to do everything. Okay, Canal Me Gusta RN says, in real life the sequence to do in operation: first fuel, second payload, third performance, fourth route, fifth program PA. In general, the payload is calculated in real time by the airplane. No, it's not calculated in real time, and we are going to come to this stage with this guide. Okay, so usually in real life the pilots, they will ask for the fuel. In the same time, the boarding process will happen, including cargo loading. You calculate performance based on your documentation. Okay, you do everything based on your documentation that you have on your pre-flight documentation, and once you have your final load sheet after the boarding, then we are going to review the performance, and you're going to see this today as well. Okay, so don't worry about it, you are going to see. Okay, so for the pre-flight procedure, I'm going to make the items that are mandatory, so it's going to be much easier for us, and if you are beginner, you can follow. Yaw damper switch on. Oops, let me erase this one. Yaw damper switch on, window heat switches to on. Okay, And then pack switches, you want to make sure that they are in auto. APU bleed air switch, you want to make sure they are on, and you take your flight altitude indicator and your land altitude indicator to your cruise altitude and your destination. Okay, so these are the only things that you really have to do on the overhead panel. Okay, so let's go on the overhead panel and let's take your damper switch to on. Okay, one thing that was part of the maintenance, one pump would be on at this stage, but if you don't want to do it, it doesn't change anything. But what you have to do, once again, window heat to on, PAX auto, APU bleed on, your flight altitude is 220, and you are landing in New York, which is 0 feet. Okay, that's what you really have to do for your flight. If you want to be more specific, you can take this to standby power, you can take the ignitors to right on the first flight of the day, and if you talk to maintenance, you can even pressurize the hydraulic system B to get a brake accumulator there and take it out just to pressurize the brake accumulator. Okay, so once you finish with all of this, you go down. When you go down, you select your QNH or altimeter on both sides. Okay, this is something that you do on both sides. You select also on both sides traffic switch. Okay, traffic switch also on both sides, so QNH, traffic switch, flight directors, and auto throttle. Okay, that's what you need on your MCP for now. Okay, so you go down, you take your altimeter. Okay, altimeter is set. Then you take traffic switches, flight director, auto throttle, flight director, altimeter already set, and traffic switches. Why is not on? On this airplane it doesn't change. Okay, you want to make sure that they are on. Okay, if you really need, most of the planes they follow and they show you the arcs. Okay, this airplane does not have the arcs, it's an old airplane, does not have the arcs, but you want to make sure you turn on your traffic. Okay, if it doesn't work here, you're going to see later on as you turn your transponder on. Okay, then on the main panel you do your auto brake to RTO and parking brake to on, and that's it. Everything is complete. So auto brake to on, parking brake also to on. Sorry, auto brake to RTO and parking brake to on, and you are done. This is what you need from all the procedure on the pre-flight checklist. Okay, only what is in green here for you, only what is in bold in the guide. Okay, do only what is in bold and you are not going to have a problem, and you can finish that with the pre-flight checklist if you want. Okay, Pmdg gives you the checklist, so you can go here and always select pre-flight checklist. So you tested the oxygen, navigation transfer, display switches, they are normal and auto. Window heat, you turn it on. Pressurization mode selector is in auto. Flight instrument heading is 304 and altimeter is 2976. Parking brake is set. Engine start levers are cut off. So the pre-flight checklist is complete. Okay, so this part is complete. You don't have to worry about the pre-flight anymore. Okay, the pre-flight checklist is here for you, and then it's time for you to get your ATC clearance. If you are on any network, if you are flying Iveo, if you are flying VATSIM, Postcom, or whatever, okay, this is the time for you to get your ATC clearance. Once you get your ATC clearance, a couple of things you can do now. If you don't do it, not a big problem. Okay, but a couple of things that I will do. I will select my heading, my departure heading. Okay, let me see my departure heading. If I go here on legs, oops, I didn't execute this one, I'm sorry. Now I go back to the legs page. My initial heading is 035, okay? So I can select my initial heading as 035. If you don't do it now, you can do later on, and the initial altitude by the chart, this is by the chart or by ATC in this case. You go on the pinned charts by SID on the Logan 4, and you are going to see here on the Logan 4, it mentions somewhere here, top altitude for runway for jet airplane for left is 5,000 feet. So you got your clearance, you can come here and select 5,000 feet if you want. You can also set your radius as you want, including the transponder, and in this case today we are going to keep it 2,000. Is not a big deal. After you get all the clearance, you can do your briefing, okay? So you come to the chart, you explain the other pilot, or you explain to yourself what you're going to do, which is in this case fly heading 035 at 4 DME, right heading 090, and expect vectors. Today we are going to fly to SOX, okay, to SOX. So after some time, as we do not have ATC here, I'm not flying online. After heading 090, we complete my turn and fly to SOX. That's our briefing, okay? Once you are finishing your briefing, it's a good time for you to check your fuel, okay? So we do have 5.2 kilograms of fuel, so we'll be arriving in JFK with 3.6 tons of fuel, which matches the flight plan. So you can release galley and you can release the fuel truck as well, okay? So you check the fuel, you can release everything that is not being in use so far, okay? Now we are going to go to the next step, which is CDU performance data and the MCP itself, okay? So this is the time that I'm going to read with you my guide when it says, when the actual zero fuel weight is received, usually on the real life, this information is only available through the load sheet when the company processes all passengers, baggage, and cargo. Then you have a reliable zero fuel weight. That's the zero fuel weight that you're going to use. You use this application, you use performance application, I'm sorry, to calculate the takeoff performance, okay? So now I can go one more time to my performance. I can copy the data from the airplane. That is going even to change my CG and everything and the weight, okay? And I can use this one, this is the real one, to calculate, and I'm going to get this information. Note that it changed a little bit, okay? It changed from takeoff 1, sorry, to takeoff 2 to takeoff 1, and only 49 degrees, still flaps 5, okay? So now that I have reliable zero fuel weight and I calculate performance, I can go on my CDU and make sure I have the correct zero fuel weight, okay? 55.0. After that, I need to go to the N1 limit page and select everything that I got from performance, okay? If you don't want to do it, takeoff, flaps, CG, and speeds. That's the minimum you have to do. But in this case, I want to use my performance data here. I'm going to select takeoff 1, 49 degrees on this page, okay? So takeoff 1, 49 degrees, and we calculated with 17, okay? It's going to select automatically climb 1 for me, which is very nice. Then on takeoff, flap is 5, CG we get from the airplane, and the speeds I'm going to get from here, which is 35, 35, and 40. Okay, so I will get 135, 135, and 140. Okay, once you get this 140 here as V2, is the perfect time to go to your MCP, because your MCP will start with your V2 always. So you got V2 on FMC, go MCP and set it 140. 0. As you have everything, you can engage VNAV, you can engage LNAV. As you already have clearance, you have everything. You make sure, if you didn't do before, now this time you select heading and altitude. Okay, so the MCP is complete. So once you get all the data, once you know what is on board your airplane, you can do your final takeoff performance calculation, and then you can enter these numbers into the CDU, and it is going to finish with, very important, V2. So that's your trigger to go to the MCP and select your V2, and then finish your MCP. ARM VNAV, check the heading selector, ARM LNAV, and check the altitude selector as you need. Okay, so now you are ready to go, basically. So one thing that you need to make sure is that before closing the doors for departure, the APU needs to be running. Okay, in this case it's already running. We don't have to run this procedure. If you started with your GPU, you take the APU and then you release your GPU and you release your air conditioning unit. Okay, so this procedure here, I'm not doing it today because everything was started with the APU. Okay, so no big deal, you don't have to use this one. Okay, when everything is ready for you to start the flight, okay, then you have all passengers on board and so on. A couple of things that you need to make sure. Okay, now is the time to close the door, remove the stairs, and so on. Okay, and also connect your pushback and everything. So let's go inside this airplane. Okay, so one thing that I want to make sure, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to doors, I'm going to close the first door. Okay, if I was using the stairs, I was going to go to the ground service and release the stair, release, this would be on the page 3. I'm going to release the stair, I'm going to release the passenger bus and everything. Okay, but in this case I use the jetway, so I'm going to go to page number 1, okay, and release the jetway. Okay, so if we go outside, we are going to see that the jetway is going to go, and that's it. Okay, everything else that is here we already finished, so we can release our baggage loaders. Okay, and the next step is to go to pushback, connect, and plan. Okay, so I connect the tug and then I plan. I want an standard L and I want to turn my nose to the left. Okay, 90 degrees. Distance to the taxi line, I think 90 meters is okay. I'm going to take 100 meters in this case. I think it's better for us. Not 1000, 100 meters. So I already plan, and then I want to make sure that my shocks are removed. Once you select a tug, Pmdg takes the shocks out for you. Okay, you don't have to do anything else. Okay, but if you are using pushback from GSX or something else, okay, then you need to make sure you are inside the airplane, and instead of selecting the pushback, you come here on the ground service and you remove the wheel shocks. And this is on the procedure. Okay, this is here on the procedure. I'm going to change color one more time to show you that this is here on the procedure. Okay, so you make sure that the wheel shocks are removed if you are not using Pmdg pushback. Okay, then captain's door, flight, first officer, captain's windows, first officer window, and exterior doors, they all need to be closed. If you did it properly, they are all closed and closed as mentioned here. Okay, then we are going to start our procedure, and I wrote here, when all doors are confirmed closed by maintenance personnel that is on the ground, we are clear to pressurize hydraulic system and ready to start the flight. We are going to see if we have more than 453 kilograms of fuel in the center tank. Okay, in this case we have no fuel in the center tank, so the first action of turning the center fuel pump switch to on, we don't do it because we don't have fuel on the center tank. We only have fuel on the main tank, so we turn on all the pumps for the main tanks. We take the fasten belt switch to on, the electrical hydraulic pumps to on, anti-collision light to on, okay, and then down here pilot flying will be takeoff reference, pilot monitoring will be on legs page, okay, but I still need this one to do my pushback, so I'm going to keep on pushback so far. And one more thing that the pilot needs to do is trim. So our trim today is 4.9, so basically 5, and I'm going to set here my trim to 5. Okay, trim to 5. Last step is transponder to transponder. Okay, as you did all of this, it's time for you to do before start checklist. Before start checklist stands for flight deck door is closed and locked on the 737. We cannot change the door so far. Fuel, we have 5,200 kilograms and the pumps are on. Passenger signs on. Windows locked. MCP, we have V2 140 heading 035, altitude 5,000. Takeoff speeds V1 135, VR 135, V2 140. CDO pre-flight is completed. Rudder and iron trim, they are 3 and 0. Taxi and takeoff briefing is completed, and the anti-collision light is on. So before start checklist is complete. Okay, as before start checklist is complete, we can proceed on our guide. And now we have pushback or towing. Okay, so if you are flying online, we have here Walsterix. Thank you for being here, Walsterix. I hope you are enjoying this live stream and the guide for the 737. So for the pushback or towing procedure, you request the clearance for pushback and engine start if you need, and then you go to the Pmdg, sorry, FMC menu, FS Actions pushback, and you click on start.
Cockpit to ground. Go ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start. They want the tail to our right. Copy that. Ready for push, tail right. Release parking brake, please.
Okay, so he requested us to release parking brake. That is part of our procedure. So parking brake is released. And as you can see, we are going to have a pushback here. Pushback by Pmdg. Everything that I'm doing here is by Pmdg. I use maintenance van from Pmdg, I use pushback from Pmdg, I use the cargo loaders, fuel truck, everything from Pmdg. Of course, if you do have GSX as I have, usually I use GSX, but you can do all these steps just using Pmdg airplane and all the features involved. You need to be a little bit careful with the pushback for the distance, but if you don't want to do it by pre-planning, you can also operate this tug manually. Okay, so you can drive the tug by Pmdg if you want. This is another option. Okay, I'm going to finish the pushback here. I'm not going to start the engines together with the pushback, even though it is a procedure that most of the companies they do it. I'm not going to do just for this guide, okay, because I want you to follow the guide step by step. Okay, and then it says when pushback or towing is complete, you're going to set the parking brake, and that's something that we are going to hear in a second.
Pushback complete. Parking brake, please.
Okay, he asked for the parking brake, so parking brake.
Brake set.
Brake set. And then the pushback is going to go. Okay, then you do the engine start procedure. First, you show the instruments. Then you take the packs off. When ready to start the engine start switch to ground. And then when you have as everything is complete, I can set this now to legs, and when you have 25% N2, is the time for you to release the fuel. So fuel or engine start lever in this case to idle, okay? This is cutoff position, this is idle position. And when you have one engine stable at idle, you know that the engine is stable at idle when this red mark here disappear, the red mark that is in the middle of the instrument. Okay, you are going to see soon. This is the limit for the EGT during engine start. Once the limit is gone, it's going to be in a while. Now the engine is the right engine number 2 is at stable idle, and you can start the other engine. Engine number 1 in this case to ground. One more time, you are going to wait for 25% N2, so you can release the fuel control switch here. Sorry, not fuel control switch. Fuel control switch is the name for the 777. The engine start lever, okay, on the 73 with 25% to idle, and one more time you are going to see engine starting, and when this red marking here goes away, the engine is stable at idle. If you are not using the pushback from Pmdg, if you are using something else, you have to release the tug. At this stage, the tug is already gone. If you are using GSX, for example, take this time to release them. Okay. Next step is to set your flaps for takeoff. Okay. So let me just go through here and take you to the before taxi procedure. So before taxi, we take the flap as needed for takeoff. Okay, so in this case it's going to be flaps 5, and then there is a flow on the overhead panel, generators to on. This you have to do. Probe heat, if it's auto you can leave auto, otherwise you can take it on. Then pack switches, you take it back to auto. Isolation valve also to auto, APU bleed to off, APU to off, engine start switch to continuous. If you have auto, just like in this case, you can even keep in auto, is up to you. Okay. Then if you're really following all the procedures, recall, but at this stage there should be no messages, no recalls. Take the flight controls, left, right, up, down, and rudder left, right, and so on, and you can blank these engine instruments here. And the last step is to do before taxi checklist. Generators, they are on, probe heat on, anti-ice off for today, isolation valve auto, engine start switch continuous, recall is checked, auto brake RTO, engine start levers idle detent, flight controls were checked, and ground equipment is clear before taxi checklist is complete. Canal Me Gusta RN also says, Commander, in the sim brief, the plan on page 17 informs a vertical profile where they recommend that close to top of descent the flight is increased. Example, the cruise is flight level 350, and then after 6% of the route executed, the plan recommends climbing 370. Why does this happen in the plan? How to manage this during flight? Well, this is something that I'm not going to cover on this tutorial here for the guide. This is something that as you are burning fuel on the flight, the optimum altitude for you to fly is higher because you are lighter, and then it's better for you to climb to have a better fuel consumption. Okay, so basically once you have here on your cruise page in this case, for example, we could climb maximum 410 optimum is 398, so I would climb maximum flight level 400 today to be around the optimum level, okay? So as this is a short flight, it does not apply today because we are flying flight level 220 because it's a short sector. But if it's not a short flight, I would climb initially close to the optimum level if I can, and as we burn fuel, the optimum level is going to increase, and as it increases and gets closer to the next level, then you climb to the next level, and so on. Okay, I'm going to keep this on takeoff, and we did the before taxi checklist, which is also in the guide. And then we have a taxi procedure. What you have to do for the taxi procedure, basically, taxi light switch on, parking brake off when you want to go, on when you stop, and when the cabin is secure for takeoff or you are approaching the runway, if you do not have issues with passenger or anything, take the weather and terrain switches to on and do your before takeoff checklist, okay? So, taxi light goes on, parking brake goes off, and you can taxi. Okay, as the runway is really close, usually pilot flying takes weather radar, and pilot monitoring takes terrain. Okay, that's how we fly. I'm going to take the second left, and as we are ready to go, we have before takeoff checklist that states for flaps 5 green light, it's already there, and stabilizer trim is 5 units. So before takeoff checklist is complete. If you are following the guide, you will also see before takeoff checklist, and then you have the takeoff procedure. Okay, I'm going to do the takeoff procedure slowly with you as we are going to taxi second left here to join full length for runway 04 left. I already have the takeoff procedure on the screen, and for takeoff I'm going to remove the procedure from the screen. You are going to see the takeoff in full screen, and then after takeoff we change back to this. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, close to the holding point. Okay, so I'm stopping here, closing to the holding point. Remember, if you stop taxiing, you take parking brake on, and the taxi light also goes off. Okay, and actually even I have to change something. If you are using turn off lights, you take it as off as well. Okay, I'm changing this to the guide. I'm going to update the guide once we finish this live stream, because on the guide is showing the taxi to be on if the airplane is stopped. That's not the case, we turn it off. Okay, now that we go for the takeoff procedure, when we are entering the runway, let's say that now we are clear to enter the runway. Okay, if we are clear to enter the runway, we are going to start the taxi. So remember, to start the taxi, always taxi light on, you take parking brake off. Okay, as you are entering the runway, this is the time that you really need runway turn off on, and you need the position light to strobe and steady. You tell the cabin crew prepare for takeoff, and you also take your transponder to TARA. Okay, so this is basically what you get when you are entering the runway. You can follow all the procedure. I will show you, well, you will see on this guide that the procedure is quite easy. Once you are clear for takeoff, you can take all the lights on and do your takeoff. And then for this takeoff, I'm going to give you full screen, okay? Basically what we need to set 40%, 40%, and 1. Okay, on the 777 is 55, on the 73 is 40% and 1. So I'm going to take my engines to 40% and 1, and then I'm going to press toga. Okay, 40% and 1, toga, and here we go. I'm not going to teach you how to take off, okay? This is just a guide for you to follow, and you are going to rotate at VR speed. And after positive rate of climb, you take the gear up. Wind from the right. Positive rate, gear up. LNAV is engaged. You follow flight directors. VNAV speed at 400 feet. You can even engage your autopilot. And you will be flying like this. Okay, 1000 feet we have acceleration. So then you start retracting your flaps. In this case, I'm going to take flaps 1. And as our speed is going above flaps 1, we can take flaps up. And the initial turn will be on the heading 090 after 4 miles, so I'm selecting heading 090 here. Once the flaps are up and you have time, okay, you can do your after takeoff procedure itself, which is part of your takeoff. Okay, you need to make sure packs and bleeds are on, engine start switches as you need, auto brake to off, and important is landing gear up and off. Okay, so for this I want to make sure packs and bleeds they are on, engine start switch I don't need them for today, landing gear goes to position off, and auto brake, if you remember, you can take it to off as well. Okay, now we are going to continue our flight. Our initial altitude, sorry, not initial altitude anymore, our altitude for this flight is 220. Okay, so 220 is set, and we are going to fly direct to SOX. Okay, so SOX we can execute. We are going 220, and we can do altitude intervention and climb flight level 220 and 1 VNAV speed. Now this is the normal flying of the airplane. Okay, once you finish all the steps for the after takeoff, you do the after takeoff checklist itself, which states for engine bleeds on, you make sure then they are on, the packs they are auto, landing gear is up and off, and flap are also up. Okay, so you wait for the flaps to come up, you make sure engine bleeds and packs they are on. Engine start switches, if you don't need them because of ice, you go back to auto or off, take the landing gear off and the auto brake to off, and read the checklist. Okay, we also have here Jonathan saying about the situation in Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. Yeah, it's really bad because of the rain there. Yes, I am following. I have some relatives. My father-in-law is in Lajeado, in a city that was affected by the floods there in south of Brazil. Still a bad situation there, but so far my relatives, they are okay, they are helping others, and if you know what is going on and if you can help somehow, please guys, help people in the south of Brazil right now. Okay, so let's continue this one on the climb page, which is the best for us. And the next step is our climb and cruise procedure. Okay, so as we go through 10,000 feet, we are going to do a couple of things. Okay, at 10,000 feet the airplane is going to accelerate, and then as there is no weather around, we can release cabin crew and passengers, okay, and take the lights off. Please guys, do lights off at this stage. At least this is according to Boeing procedure. There's no point to do these lights before. Okay, so this is what you get at 10,000 feet. And the next step is transition altitude. As we are still a little bit far from transition altitude, you will see that on the guide itself I explain you how to do the flap retraction. Okay, so in this case today we were taking off with flaps 5. Okay, so flaps 5, when you have a speed of V2 plus 15 or above, you select flaps 1. Okay, and then you select the speed above flaps 1, or the FMC will do it to you. Okay, then once you have flaps 1 and your speed is above the 1 indication, then you select flaps up. And I show you all the different takeoff flaps. Only flap 2 is not showed here because most of the companies, they don't use flaps 2 for takeoff. Okay, so this is what I did for retracting the flaps, taking off with flaps 5. So you have the option 25, 15, 10, 5 and 1, and you have all the options here how to do the flap retraction. Okay, as we are here now on the climb, the next step is transition altitude, and we are going to set the altimeters to standard. Okay, as we are approaching transition altitude, which is in the United States, there is no transition altitude but minimum usable level. So to make it easier for everybody, we consider transition altitude and transition level in the United States as flight level or altitude 18,000 feet. Okay, as we are approaching this stage, as we get closer to 18,000 feet, we are going to select our altimeters to standard. Like says Perna do Vento, thank you, muito obrigado. So the transition altitude is coming. That will be 18,000 feet. And you keep flying as you have to. You keep talking to ATC, getting clearance to continue your climb, to go to your best level, and so on. Okay, now we are approaching 18,000 feet. We can take our altimeters to standard, and we're going to see standard here as we cross 18,000 feet. And one more time, once you reach cruise altitude, if you do have fuel in the center tank, okay, you turn both fuel pump switches to on. When the low pressure starts to illuminate, you take them out and you do the cruise briefing as needed. In a short flight, there's no point for a cruise briefing, and then on a short flight like this, you can start your descent preparation. Okay, so let's reach cruise altitude and let's do our descent preparation together. One more time, everything that is in bold, you have to do it. Okay, everything that is not in bold is the procedure the pilots they do, but if you don't change, if you don't do anything wrong, the bottom, the switch, it will be at the exact right position. Armchair captain, on takeoff my flight director seems to hit 20 degrees pitch up. Is that too high? Yeah, it happened to me today. Actually, if you have the right thrust, it's going to be around 15 degrees up. But remember, this is also the rate of rotation. Today my rotation was very slow after I got airborne, so the main part is to keep rotating until you reach pitch 15, and you are going to see that the airplane will be sitting there at pitch 15 initially if you do not have excess thrust. If you have excess thrust, then is your takeoff performance calculation that is a little bit off and you had more thrust than required. Okay, Estrella Comercio is also here. Thank you for your message, my friend. Okay, so as we reach cruise altitude and we are getting close to the top of descent, and I do recommend you to do your descent procedures around 80 miles to the top of descent. Okay, so the descent procedures that you're seeing on the right side of your screen state for 80s. I'm going to get the 80s from my tablet, not the 80s itself, but the weather information. So electronic flight bag arrival, and I can get from 1751. Wind is 210, so still runway 22 left in this case. 23 degrees and altimeter 2976. Very good weather in New York. Okay, next step is to make sure you have your arrival. Okay, in this case I already select before the flight, but you could do it now by selecting the ILS to left, Parch 3 and Sierra Echo India transition and executing. Okay, so after buzzard you go Sierra Echo India, and one thing that I'm going to show you is that I'm going to take this to plan, and then I'm going to go step by step because there is another vector here after rubber Crail Cockpit, and there is a vector. Okay, as you can see, so I have Cockpit here, and to the north Rosalie, and to the south Zaupo. Okay, so I can fly from Cockpit to Zaupo, or I can fly from Crail to Rosalie, as I do not have ATC, because usually ATC vector us slightly to the right to intercept from Rosalie. So I'm going to do just like a real ATC will do it in JFK. So from Crail to Rosalie, and then we take Zaupo ILS runway 22 left. Okay, so this is the time for you to make sure you have your FMC set it up correctly. Okay, this back to map. Now I'm happy with my arrival. I need to select my minimus. I take it from the chart. Arrival to left. The minimus for this chart is 212 feet. So let's come here on this one. Yeah, minimums 212 is set it here. Okay, we continue flying, turn right. Next step that we need is the course. The course will be the final approach course 224. So 224 you need to take it on both sides. For the ILS you really need to do it 224. 224 on the course, both sides. It's written on the guide. Go ahead and do it on both sides. Auto brake. For the auto brake I need some sort of performance. I can use my tablet again. So I go landing route, runway 22 left. I take the details from the airplane. Flaps 30 is good for me. Import the weather as well. And so far no reverses and auto brake too. Let's see how it goes. At the end of runway 22, maybe auto brake 3 is better for us, and yeah, brake 3 with this weight, idle reverse is enough. So I'm going to come here and select my auto brake to 3, and then on the approach reference page we are going to burn 600 kilos, so we are going to land with 58.3. Let's see if it matches the calculation from the PMDG. Yeah, 58.292, 58.3 is good enough. And flaps 30, speed 140, plus 5 for the wind correction, 145. Let's see if it matches our performance, 145, all set. Okay, and then the last step is the minimus, sorry, the radius. So the radius, we need frequency 110.90. You come all the way down here and you take your ILS 110.90 to the active, and here 110.90 to the active, and pretty much everything is set. If you want to do more things like the standard recall, if you want to make sure the pressurization is set as the pilots they do it, please go ahead. But if you did everything correct, there's no need to perform all those steps, especially if you are a beginner. Okay, and that's it. This procedure is complete, so you can do your briefing. You can brief yourself or tell your friend that you are going to fly Part 3 arrival from SACE. Okay, so the airplane is approaching here, send point is going to go all the way to Craig, and then from Craig we decided today that we are going to fly direct to Rosley. Rosley altitude is 3,000 feet to intercept 224 inbound 110.90, which is the ILS for runway 22 left, and landing minimum 212 feet. I'm going to take the chart here for the airport. Now this one, and we will be landing on runway, no, I'm the wrong one, on the arrival. I need the arrival, airport, and this is the one. So we'll be landing on runway 22 left. We can vacate hotel. If we cannot make it, we take the next one, Juliet. It doesn't matter which one, Juliet or hotel. We cross runway 22 right, and we are going to take the second right on Alpha. So the second right on Alpha, and we are going to taxi then via Delta Alpha to one of these parking position here, which I already pre-selected, and I think it's Alpha 19 or something. Yeah, we are going to come here all the way to position 19, okay, via Alpha then and Delta Alpha to position 19. So as the briefing is complete, you can do the descent checklist. Okay, so descent checklist: pressurization, landing out to the 0 feet, recall is checked, auto brake, oh, I didn't select, my mistake, auto brake 3, that's why we have checklist, landing data, VREF and minimums, VREF 140 and minimums 212, approach briefing is complete. So just before we start our descent, we have more question here. How do you change your arrival info in the FMC? I find that I'm only adding the new arrival to my route. Basically, when you change the arrival, you are adding a new one, okay? So for example, if you come here and you select, in this case, ILS 22 right, okay, you select Part 3 from SAE, and you have to tell your airplane that you are flying towards SAE. Again, so you take that SAE and put on top, and then you are flying again. If you are changing one more time, I'm landing on ILS 22 left. Okay, same arrival, I'm not changing the arrival, I'm just changing the ILS now. I can execute, and you are going to see that we have all the arrival, and from Rosley, I'm going to, sorry, from Crail, I'm going to fly Rosley, and I can execute, and that's it. So basically, if you select something else, you are changing the arrival, the approach, or both, okay? That is no specific change, and you add all the arrival from the beginning, and then you have to select which point you are flying. For example, now we are already flying inbound Parch, okay? So if I select the arrival again, 22 left, Part 3 from Sierra Echo India, okay, I need to go to my legs page and tell them I'm not going to Sierra Echo India, I'm going now direct to Parch. take it on the first page as first point and execute again. One more time, as I selected everything, Rosalie will go after Crayo, and then we have our arrival one more time the way that we want it, okay? And if you did everything as expected, you will be around 20 miles to top of descent, which is basically 3 minutes or so, okay? So you still have, even in a short flight like this, a few minutes to complete your procedures, and if you need to do something else, you still have time, okay? Cadu Batera is also around here. Canal Me Gusta RN, let's see. Captain, about this +5 above VREF calculation by the FMC, is that V approach? Yes, that is V approach. I talked about this for you, Me Gusta RN, in Portuguese on the previous video on this channel when I'm answering the question on the layovers, okay? So I talk about this, it's there in Portuguese for you. Also, Marcos Andrade here saying boa tarde, and I'm chair captain says got it. Okay, thank you. I'm really happy when somebody can understand my explanations. Thank you for that. And that was the step I was missing. Thanks. Yeah, I imagine that was the step to re-enter the point that you are flying to, because in this case, if you were on this arrival, part 3 arrival, okay, at this stage we are already after Sandy Point. So if you select your arrival again, including the transition, the FMC is going to take everything else, and you need to go on the new arrival that you selected and select the point that you are flying to it, which in this case is Parch, and then execute this. Good. So here we go. We are almost descending. As of course you can notice, that is the descent checklist, and then there will be the approach procedure that is going to start in United States at transition level. Okay, so you need to set the altimeters to the local altimeter setting, and at 10,000 feet you are going to do the reverse steps of selecting fasten belt switch to on and all the lights to on. Okay, and once you are going to fly below your minimum safe altitude, you also want to make sure that one pilot has the terrain, usually the pilot monitoring. Okay, before we continue further, we are going to start our descent, and according to legs page here, we do not have any restriction. Okay, any restriction on this chart, even though it says, let me see, part 3, that we should be crossing Carverton 250, 12,000. As I do not have ATC, I'm going to do this. Carverton 250 and 12,000. I missed that, so I'm going to execute, and I'm already high. Okay, so I'm going to select 12,000 feet, and I'm going to use speed intervention to go down. Retard MCP speed. Another thing that we have here is rubber at 9,000. Rubber at 9,000. This is something that I'm going to set as well. Rubber at 9,000, and I'm going to execute. Okay, so this is our descent. As we are approaching, altimeter was 2976. I'm going to keep it on standby here. 2976. As we are approaching 18,000 feet, I'm going to select the 2976, and we have to go down. We are a little bit high, so there are a few things that you can do to catch this path. If you are really high, you can increase your airspeed, so speed intervention, and I'm going to select in this case 300 knots to see if it helps. If it does not help, we can go on speed brake, and if you cannot increase the speed, the only resource for you to go now is the speed brake. Okay. As I was telling you, we get the altimeters, and then at 10,000 feet we have some lights and fasten belts to do. Also, I set here for you the flap extension speed schedule. Today we are going to land flaps 30. So when we have flaps up and our speed is above up, we select flaps 1. And then when you have flaps 1 and the speed is above 1, you select flaps 5. Then with flaps 5 and the speed above 5, do not go below 5, you select flaps 15 and usually gear down. And after flaps 15, when you have flaps 15, you select your landing flaps, flaps 30, and the speed will be your VREF plus 30 plus the wind additive of at least 5 knots. Okay, so I'm going to keep this on this page for now. And we went back to the path, so I can cancel speed intervention. The airplane is going to remain on path, is going to retard the thrust levers to idle. So we are going to now reduce our airspeed slowly towards our descent speed of 259. We have this drag required here because our speed is above what was planned by the FMC. I'm going to cancel this because it's not a big deal for now. And the airplane keeps going down. Okay, the next step are the steps for 10,000 feet. And then we are going to do the ILS procedure. Today I'm not going to do the go-around procedure, but the go-around procedure is also set here, also VNAV procedure. So today we have an ILS, but if you do not want an ILS, or if you do not have an ILS, you can do the VNAV procedure for approach. And if you really need, go around and missed approach procedure is also here, even with the flap selection for go around. Okay, so basically up to flap 15 you keep the flap that you are that you have extended so far for your go around. If you have more than 15, which is 25, 30 or 40, you select flaps 15 for your go around. Then there is the landing and landing roll procedure. Basically take autopilot, auto throttle off, land, brakes, reverse it, and speed brake. One more thing, this is the automatic landing and landing roll procedure. If you do not want to land manually, then there are additional steps that you have to do it here, and you just follow these 3 additional steps depending on the airplane that you have to do an automatic landing. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. So we are approaching 10,000 eventually, and this is the next step that we are going to do. So 13,000 feet. The speed is dropping slowly, but not enough. I still think it's going to be able to do it. As we do not have ATC, it's not a big deal. We are reaching 12,000 feet. It's going to cross Carrollton at 12,000 feet. The next altitude is 9,000 feet. So I'm selecting here 9,000 feet for Robber at 9,000 feet. Okay, the airplane is pitching up now to reduce the speed towards 250 knots. And the most important is to depart Carrollton with 250 knots. That is going to happen really soon. Okay, Carrollton, airplane reducing to 250 knots. And 9,000 towards Robber. As you can see, there was no need for speed brake, only increasing the speed and then managing the speed back to the FMC. It was good enough on this arrival. Very good weather here in New York today. We have Long Beach in front of us, and the airport is going to be slightly to our right side. Not much that we have to do at this stage. Waiting for 10,000, so we are getting close to 10,000, so we can set seat belts back to on, lights on, landing, turn off, and taxi. If it's at night, also logo light. Okay, that's it for now. You can come all the way down here and say, cabin crew, prepare for landing. So they know we are getting closer and closer to the ground. So this was the 10,000 feet procedure. We have weather and terrain from the takeoff. And one thing that we have to do now, because we have set it, the altimeters, is the approach checklist, which stands for altimeters 2976. They are set. Approach checklist is complete. Okay, then we are going to start extending the flaps. We plan to intercept the localizer with flaps 5 and at flaps 5 speed. Okay, then we are going to arm the approach mode. When we have glide slope alive, gear down, flaps 15, engine start switch to continuous, and speed brake to arm it. Once we intercept the glide slope, landing flaps, which today is 30, and we select missed approach altitude, as described here on the guide for you. Okay, so we are clear now by ATC, no restrictions to 3,000 feet. That's something that I'm going to select now. Level change, and I'm going to maintain 250 knots for now based on ATC request. And there we go, we keep going down. MSA at this for this approach from the sector that we are coming is only 2,000, so Rosley is at 3,000 according to the chart. Okay, but ATC can even clear us to 2,000 and some point between Rosley and Zalpo to cross later on Zalpo at 1,800 feet. So sometimes they clear us to 2,000 and they cut us short here on this approach. And maybe I will do something like this, or maybe we go through Rosley anyway. But I'm going to get self vector for this approach, descending to 2,000 to get the glide slope from below. Do you keep flight director armed during final approaches? I saw some pilots disarming them and using order landing references. Any recommendations? Yes, keep flight directors. You keep flight directors, okay? Because you are going to have flight directors in this case on the approach mode, so it's going to give you localizer and glide slope all the way until you start your flare. So keep flight directors on. Do not turn off flight directors. There is a video here in this channel explaining when you turn off flight directors. Okay, it's very specific. Okay, I can tell you that for ILS approaches, you never turn off the flight director. Okay, most of the RNAV approaches nowadays you also do not turn off. If you have on your FMC a runway and a glide path here for the RNAV, you are going to see. Let me show you. If we were doing RNAV runway 22 left, okay, and then you come here, you are going to see for runway 22 left, glide path 2.97. That means the airplane or the flight director has the capability to track you laterally from Naik to Zalpo and all the way to the runway 22 left, and also vertically from 1,800 feet following a 2.97 degree glide path, which is basically 3, all the way to the runway. So in this case you also do not remove your flight director. Okay, if you have this, if you have the glide path, do not remove your flight director, and that's I will say 99% of the cases for RNAV approaches nowadays. Okay, so the pilots, they land the airplane with flight directors on. There's no reason to turn off flight directors if the turn off flight directors if the flight directors are giving you the indications that you want. Okay, so keep flight directors on. There we go. We are still flying. The airport is almost ahead of us. Yeah, I can already see. If I'm not wrong, yeah, this is the area for the airport. This is the area for the airport. Of course, my graphics, they are not taking far away objects so far. So I can do this broadcast, I can take the guide and everything. So as we are going down, let's say ATC told us to complete the right turn, which is usually what they do, heading 320. Okay, so heading 320, and we were clear to go down 2,000 feet. Okay, and then so we have heading sail going down 2,000 feet, and eventually he's going to cut us between Rosley and Zaupo. More we have here. Mateus Diniz, what is thermal anti-ice on or off on the descent page? Is the altitude that you are going to turn your engine anti-ice on, and the altitude that you are going to turn your engine anti-ice off during the descent and approach. Okay, basically, as there is no icing conditions today, you keep it off, so you don't have to set anything on the anti-ice on and off. We got 10 reais from Canal Me Gusta RN saying a Brazilian pilot making a difference in the aviation and simulation community, helping more than he knows. Thank you, Captain. Obrigado. Obrigado. Thank you so much for your contribution to this channel. So here we are. Let's do a standard approach. So now ATC asks us to reduce speed to 10. So we are reducing speed to 10. We are getting closer and closer. As we are getting closer, ATC asks us, for example, to reduce the speed for approach. So I bring my speed to flaps up. Okay, so as you are going to see, I'm going to set here my flaps up speed. Let me get this camera. So as you can see, I selected my speed to the flaps up speed. As I'm approaching flaps up, I'm going to select flaps 1. Okay, and then as I approach flaps 1, I select flaps 5, and I take flaps 5, and so on. Okay, up to 5. Okay, so we are approaching now flap up speed. I'm going to take flaps 1 and reduce my speed to flap 1 speed. Now ATC told us to turn left heading 240 to intercept ILS runway 250 to intercept ILS 22 left. Actually 250 is too much, 260 is enough. Now it's approaching flaps 1, so I select flaps 5 and I reduce my speed to flaps 5. And I keep like this. Now I have my localizer, my glide slope is there, correct identification. I can arm approach mode. Okay, so approach is there. Okay, and I keep flying like this. So the airplane is going out to intercept localizer really soon, and then the glide slope. The next step is when this glide slope starts to come down, we are going to select gear down, flaps 15, reduce the speed to flaps 15, and take engine start switches and speed brake. Okay, So final vector heading 240. There we go, localizer is coming. Okay, let's wait for the glide slope to start coming down. That's the time where we select gear down and flaps 15. Coming to the localizer. Glide slope is alive, so we take gear down, flaps to 15, so we can take our speed to flaps 15. Select engine start switch to continuous or keep it in auto if you have the option, and we are going to arm the speed brake. Okay, so that's it. Localizer was captured. Final approach course is 224. And as we have a glide slope approaching, we'll have the glide slope capture really soon, and we are going to select our landing flaps. Glide slope capture, landing flaps is flaps 30, our approach speed is 145, and the missed approach is to 3000 feet. If I'm not wrong, yeah, 3000 feet. Okay, so everything is set now. Last step, landing checklist. Landing checklist, engine start switch, they are continuous or auto, speed brake is armed, landing gear is down, 3 green, and flap is 30, green light. Landing checklist is complete. All set. Now we just have to land this airplane on runway 22 left in New York, okay? To finish this procedure, you are going to do the landing and landing row, autopilot off, auto throttle off. Once you are on the ground, the brake as needed, okay? Usually auto brake takes care of it, and reverses as needed. Today we don't need the reverses. Speed brake will come up automatically. Okay, I'm going to set my screen here so I can see what is going on. Basically like this. So auto throttle going off, autopilot going off, and we keep following flight directors. Okay, this is very important. Keep following the flight directors. It will take you down to the runway on the ILS. Of course, if the ILS is correctly placed by the scenario that you have, okay? You can even fly like this if you want to. It's not a big deal, okay? I don't know why I did, because now I have to reset everything, and here we go. Keep flying flight directors. Always check your speed. Localizer and glide slope, they are fine.
Plus 100.
Flight directors all the way down until you are completely visual. Now you complete your approach visually.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
And reverses. Idle reverse for today is more than enough. I should have taken full screen for you, but the main for this video is not the flight itself, is the guide. Okay, as now we are approaching the speed, we can take out of reverse and take brakes off as well. And then we have the next one to the right here to vacate the runway. And as I'm getting to the point that we are going to vacate the runway, I'm going to take the guide here all the way to the after landing procedure. Okay, so we take right here and we vacate the runway to the right. This is the second high speed, so we are on Juliet. Okay, usually at this stage we talk to the tower to see if we are going to stay on tower frequency, if we go to the ground frequency, if we change to the other tower frequency that handles runway 22 right here in New York. Usually there is another tower before calling ground. Okay, so we make sure we have our taxi clearance to continue our procedures. Okay, so in this case we got the clearance as we briefed, so we can start the procedure by retracting the speed brake. Okay, after speed brake retraction we take APU selector to on. Okay, and then probe heat to off if you have, or auto. Then you can take the lights off. You only need taxi. Even though we are going to cross one runway, so for runway crossing we are going to keep the lights on. Okay, lights on for the runway crossing here. Engine start switch says there is no icing condition, it can goes back to off or auto. We can take weather radar off, terrain off, auto brake to off, flap lever all the way up, and the last one is transponder. We take it to transponder mode. Okay, as we take the second right, and now we don't need the lights anymore, so always this light is a big issue. Okay, light is off. We need to take here second right, so lights off including turn off and including position light to steady. Okay, so here we go. We finish our after landing procedure. So remember, speed brake, then APU. Okay, speed brake, APU, that's important. Then you take probe heat off if it is not auto position. Then you continue lights, engine start switches. Today we kept the lights because we were going to cross the runway, so we keep the lights a little bit more, and that's it. After that you take weather radar, terrain, auto brake, flaps and transponder, and you are all set to go. We go all the way to our parking position. I'm going to go to that position because, well, I don't really need to go to that parking position. Let's see if we have something closer here. Yeah, we have something closer here. Let's slow down and take left here, as we can park in one of these gates that we have here on the international. This is the international terminal, one of the international terminal. So I'm going to follow and continue straight ahead here and find a gate for myself. Maybe here on the left. Yeah, here on the left looks promising. Okay, as we are approaching the final position, this is the time for you to take taxi light off. And I'm going to park from inside, sorry, from outside, because I do not have GSX today to guide me through. Okay, so we are going to use our manual guidance for today's flight to stop here at this position in the New York Kennedy Airport. Usually I use GSX, but I don't want to use any other add-on, so I stop too much, apart from Pmdg and the Microsoft Flight Simulator itself, okay? So let's keep going. So far the indications are good. I don't want to go beyond the line. And I think that this is really close to the 7.3. Still good. Still good enough. And here we park, okay? As we park, remember, always parking brake to on, and I'm going to take you to our shutdown procedure, okay? So shutdown procedure, we make sure parking brake is on, the light is on. When the APU is running, APU generator on the bus, both sides, and then you can shut down your engine, taking the engine start levers to cut off. Okay, after engine start levers to cut off, fuel pumps, they go off. I'm going to keep one on for the APU. Then fasten belt switches, they go off. Anti-ice is already off. Electric hydraulic pumps, we can take them off. Isolation valve, we open. APU bleed on. Anti-collision light off. Next step is fly directors, our fly directors to off, and to finalize it, transponder to standby. Once you have transponder on standby, usually what happens is that maintenance personnel, ground personnel is taking the shocks. So you can take menu, FS action, ground services, and wheel shocks to set. Once you have the wheel shocks to set, you can take parking brake off. You don't need parking brake anymore. And next step is shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps, they are off. We only have one for the APU. Probe heat is off. Hydraulic panel set. Flaps up. Parking brake is off. Engine start levers cut off. And weather radar is off. Shutdown checklist is complete. Now that we have jetway is selected, and I can then select request here the jetway, and you are going to see that the jetway is going to come to my airplane. I hope is big enough to reach my airplane. Nah, not really. Oh yes, it is. Oh, not really. Not big enough to reach my airplane, but that's software failure, not my failure. Once we have the jetway connected, we can go to the door and open that specific door, and then we want to start deplaning the passengers, and also we want to deplane and take the cargo out. So passengers, we have 100 today. I can set it to 0 and start deplaning. Yep. And I also want to remove all the cargo, so I take this to 0 if I want to do a progressive deplaning of the airplane. Okay, otherwise you can go all the way to FS actions, payload, and just take set empty. Okay, as you can see, passengers are going out, that's why the load level is going down. And if you go to ground services on the 4th page, once we have the loader and the carts that are arriving here, okay, loads and carts are arriving here, I can start to unload the baggage as well. This was totally informative. I'm subscribing to your channel and I will like this video. Keep them coming. Thank you. Thanks, Air Chair Captain. Once again, Armchair Captain. Yeah, you already subscribed. Actually, you need to subscribe to send messages here. So I hope more people do it. It's for free. You subscribe for free and then you can interact with me here on the live stream. Okay, amazing guide. Captain says me gusta RN, and I'm also waiting the bags to connect here so I can start offloading the bags as well. Of course, if you do it with, you see, now I can start, and you are going to see that these kilograms are going down 10 by 10, and once the aft carts they arrive, I'm going to do the same. Okay, let's say that we are not going to fly anymore. Okay, so I'm going to go for the secure checklist eventually. Let them just connect the ground cards. Yeah, the aft cards, they are coming, still connecting. Now we can start offloading the bags as well. And if we go to page number 3, we can see that they already offloaded 47 passengers. Now there are 53 to go, and as we check here on the payload is keeps going down until reach load level 0. Okay, so it's doing as it is supposed to be. Okay, so now we have to think if we are going to do the next sector or not. Okay, if we are going to do the next sector, you can request for cabin cleaning, galley services, potable water or lavatory as you want. But then today we are not going to continue the flight. We are going to do the secure procedure. Okay, I say start the secure procedure after all the passengers have been disembarked. So if we check here on the ground services page 3, there are still 34 passengers to go. Okay, let's assume that those passengers they are out, and I can start doing the secure procedure, which takes the IRS switches to off, and then if you have cabin utility off, IFE passive power switches to off, emergency exit lights to off, window heat to off, trim air off, and very important, packs to off. After you do this, you can do your secure checklist. So secure checklist says IRS, they are off, emergency exit lights off, window heat off, and packs off. And that's how the crew is going to hand over this airplane to the maintenance. And this is written here on the guide as well. So how we hand over this to the maintenance, and I write something to you. Usually after the secure procedure, maintenance personnel takes care of the airplane and perform the maintenance tasks required and the electrical power down. So this is a good time to request that maintenance van again. So let's go there, ground services, second page, maintenance van request, and we are going to see the maintenance van coming here. So maintenance is coming to the airplane, so we can handle this airplane off to the maintenance. When prolonged tasks have to be completed, it's recommended to turn off the APU and use a GPU instead. Okay, so usually at this time the ground crew, the maintenance that just arrived, are going to set a GPU. Okay, so in airplane service number 1, we need the GPU card and we can request. Okay, so maintenance is going to connect the GPU card somewhere here. This is the GPU card and it's connecting to the airplane, and we know it's connected when we have ground power available light. At this stage we take this to on, okay, and we can take down APU. As we are taking down APU, we don't need this pump anymore, okay. This pump is always for you to control. Let's see how is the temperature today. Temperature today is 23 degrees. As we are connected to a bridge, it's going to be hot inside this airplane, so we can ask for air conditioning. So air conditioning unit we request, okay. So the air conditioning unit is going to arrive to our airplane. Is coming here. Air conditioning unit is coming here. They are going to connect the air conditioning unit to the airplane. We just want to make sure that on the cockpit itself the packs they are off, and they are, okay. So let's see, they are connecting now. Air conditioning unit, okay. We are going to see now the ducts from the unit all the way to the center of the airplane. So now we have air conditioning on the airplane as well, okay. Now maintenance will do all the required tasks. If you want, you can go to menu, Pmdg setup, aircraft failures, and then check if there is any failure, if you want to correct them or not. The other option is to go to menu, FS actions, ground maintenance, and service the hydraulic fluid if you need, engine oil quantity, reset the engine exhaust gas temperature limit, because if you have an exceedance, you will have the exceedance shown here. You can reset this. Refill the fire bottles if you use the fire bottles to extinguish any fire. Refill oxygen bottles as well. And the second, you can cool the brakes or replace the brakes, even replace tires. Reconnect the integrated drive generator. So reconnect the generators if you have any failure and had to disconnect it during flight. You can also come here and do it on the ground, and service the APU, okay. Those are the options that you have for maintenance, okay. So as we are going to complete the flight, okay, one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to check here that on the page all passengers they are off, of course, and there are no cargo anymore, so I can release these guys here. I don't need them anymore, and I can request on the page number 2, I can request for cabin cleaning. Sorry, page number 2, yeah, no, not number 2, cabin cleaning on the page number 3. I can also request for lavatory, and I can request for portable water, okay. All of these, it's on the guide here, okay. So the next step is when everything is complete, is to release these guys, okay. So they are arriving, they are going to do the service here to keep the airplane in a very good shape for the overnight. So I say also consider cleaning the cabin, empty the waste tank, and replenishing the potable water in order to power down the airplane in a good condition, okay. Potable water, maybe you don't want to do that if it's a long overnight, okay. If it's a short one, maybe you can do it now. And once everything is complete, okay, so now we have potable water, we have waste, and we have cabin cleaning. I think cabin cleaning is going to come after those guys leave. Let's see, it says, yeah, it's on hold, as a couple of things still have to go, okay. So once you finish all of this, it's time to finish the last steps of your flight. if you want to take it all the way down. Now let's say they are finishing everything. You can take logo light switch to off if it was on, and the position light also to off. Okay, after that, what you have to do is the electrical power down. Okay, so to power down the airplane, APU switch is already off, you take it off. Ground power also to off, and battery switch to off. So the airplane is completely powered down. Okay, the last step that I'm going to do here, I'm going to make sure that all the services, they are gone. One more time, FS actions, ground services. On page number 4, I don't have anything connected. On page number 3, I can release potable water, lavatory, and the maintenance van, because even the maintenance van is going now. Okay, and he's going to take the ground power and the air conditioning out as well. Okay, so this was the electrical power down supplementary procedure. To finalize, if you really want to complete everything, okay, you can take, in this case, as we have jetway, you can close the door and release the jetway. Okay, so we can do that as well. Here on doors, close both doors that we don't need. Yeah, and on ground services, release the jetway. So everybody's going out and the airplane is completely cold and dark one more time. Okay, so this is the end of the guide. Actually, I do have a list of services available from Pmdg. So here you can check that we have the GPU type selection, and also the option to request GPU, ASU, which is the air start unit, ACU, which is the air conditioning unit, potable water to replenish water tank, lavatory to empty waste tank, maintenance van is the maintenance van as well as the fuel truck, the passenger bus. You can also request the cabin cleaner truck, forward catering truck, aft catering truck, forward cargo loader, forward cargo bag, aft cargo loader, and aft cargo bags. Okay, so they are all available by Pmdg. Okay, not from the flight simulator, by Pmdg. All of this was made by Pmdg. I have something about the cover page and the summary of updates. You can see that 2 days ago I did the format change. Procedures were completely revised. There were a couple of notes that I still have to do. I'm going to launch the version 5.1 in another 2 days, so around the 9th of May you can come to the same link and download the new guide with some adjustments that I'm going to do after this live broadcast here with you. So guys, I'm going to take my webcam here to thank you everybody for the good feedback from the 777 simulator guide. I hope it's going to be the same with the 737 simulator guide. There are a couple of things that I'm going to adjust on the guide, which are the correct time to call the catering first and then the loaders. Okay, release catering and then calling the loaders. And also and also all those small things that Pmdg can give us with all the service. I'm going to make a more stable operation, so you don't have to take them in and out as you are moving through. But important thing was to show you this guide. Okay, Paulo Gomez also says thank you, and I thank you guys. So if you have any doubt about the guide or about the 737, please send a message. I will be more than happy to help. What I don't know, I can search in the manuals that I still have. from the 737 or the 777 that I'm currently flying, I have access to the updated manual, please let me know, send a message, and we are going to keep in touch. Okay, so thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.